Hi everybody and welcome to Mark's 900. I'm Mark and yes, I've got a drone, but this episode isn't about drones. That's for another day once I've got the hang of it. But there is a reason for the drone. You see, me and 5 of my mates are going on tour in May. We're taking the ferry down to Santander and then riding through the Bardenas Reales, a semi-desert or badlands. We're going to Pamplona, we're going up the Pyrenees and then back up through France to catch another ferry home. Now it's about 7 days and some drone footage is going to be epic as we cross the desert and climb the mountains. But more importantly for this trip, I need to think about the bike and more specifically how to carry all that luggage. Now I felt quite sure that I was going to be standing on my front drive proudly showing you my new Ninja 1000 SX with full touring pack. Genuinely, I was going to buy one, but no. Well, why not? Well, I rode one and I don't want to turn this into a bike review, but it really wasn't the bike for me. Now I get it, the Ninja 1000 is an awesome bike in just about every way, and for many people I know they love it and it's the perfect bike. The problem for me is that if I was going to spend another 5,000 or 6,000 on a bike that's the same age and mileage as the one I've already got, it's going to have to be pretty damn perfect. With the Ninja, I found it surprisingly upright, which is really comfy, but not particularly sporty. Now, I spent a lot of time faffing around with the adjustable front screen, which seemed to concentrate the wind and ram it straight into my neck and throat. The bike itself was so tall that I could barely touch the floor on my tiptoes, which was very uncomfortable, and I would need a lowering kit or a lower seat. The indicators are not self-cancelling, which is very much a champagne problem, I understand, but also the awful colour schemes. I just couldn't live with that red, and I don't particularly like green bikes either. Now, they did do a black and red last year, but they're like finding unicorn shit because they didn't make many bikes for the UK last year. Overall, it did feel just a bit too much like a dad bike, and getting back on my Z900 made me feel like a young hooligan again, which I am in my head, if not in my wrinkly old body. Anyway, the point is, it's time to turn the Z900 into a touring machine. So, how do we do that? Well, let's have a look, and I warn you, there's a lot in this one, because I had to make some significant changes to the bike. So, let's crack on and do this. Okay then, so let's have a look at these luggage options. Now we'll start off with a good old rucksack, and this is an Alpine Stars rucksack. It's quite a small one, but it's big enough for a laptop and my sandwiches, so I use it every day for work. But for a 6-day trip, this just isn't going to cut it. I mean, I'm a man about town. I've got evening wear to think about. T-shirts, pants and socks and endless pairs of jeans and shoes. So yeah, it's not all going to fit into there. The other option I've got is my good trusty Oxford tail pack, which goes on there like that. This is a 30-litre tail pack. I've used it a lot for touring and it's great for weekends away or just a couple of days. But really, you know, again, for 6 days, I'm just not going to be able to get all my stuff in there. Now, in the past, I've tried to combine a rucksack with the tail pack, but honestly, the two don't go together. And this thing is a little bit uncomfortable because you can't lean back very far. So for 6 days with that behind me, well, it might be an addition in the same way that I could wear that in addition to something else, but on its own, just simply not enough. Now, my mate was kind enough to come round and see me, and he said, Mark, I've got just the answer for you. I've got a throw-over set of bags, which I've used on a Honda CBR 600, so if it fits that, it's bound to fit your bike. So I said, okay, mate, let's give that a go. So this is the pack he was talking about. These would fling over the back there, and then there's also a sort of bag which goes on the tail like that. Now, you know, that's a great idea. I've got a few problems with this. The first one is obviously that it's fouling on these rear indicators, and we'll come back to that a lot more later on. So they didn't really fit with that, but also if you come and have a closer look at what it looks like from the top, you'll see sort of the other reason why. Okay, the tail on the Z900 comes in quite narrow at the back, and the problem is that if you were to put these bags close to the tail so that they don't fall off, they're at a really strange angle, and again, it just doesn't seem to fit. Well, the Velcro doesn't allow it to do that. So I got my mate round, he had a look at it as well, and he said, no, you're absolutely right, Mark, there is no way that's going to fit your bike properly. Certainly not safely for a period of days. Well, my conclusion to these initial trials is the fact that I'm not going to get a set of rear panniers on this bike whilst I've got this tail tied on it. So I've got to make a choice. I either have that or I need to change it out for something else. So there's a couple of bag options that may work possibly with some sort of tail tidy. The first one is the Shad system. Now Shad do a frame and then you can put a hard pannier on there, and they also do one that has a pole that comes up at a sort of right angle, and for that you can slide on a harder sort of bigger box that goes on the back. So they're pretty good, quite expensive. The other option is the SW Motec. Now that's rather nice because it comes with a single pole that connects in there, and it comes up here, and you can remove that pole when you're not using the bag, so the bike goes back to looking exactly as it does now, so it doesn't ruin the aesthetics. But again, I'm not sure if one of those is going to work with this tail. So what I've done is I've dug out the old number plate holder, the tail, whatever you want to call it. I may need to put that back onto the bike in order to fit some sort of pannier. So what I'm going to do is order myself some SW Motecs. They come in at about £350. Once they arrive, I'm going to fit all the bars to the bike, and then I'll see if they work with these indicators. I suspect not, and then I'll put this on. Now I've got a third plan, which is that if I use a different tail tidy, I can put much smaller indicators on it, and it may be that I can get away with a tail tidy, small indicators, and I can have bags as well. But we'll have to see about that. First step is to do it with this, otherwise I'm just going to be throwing all sorts of money at this bike, and some of it may not work. So let's do it one step at a time. Go out, get myself some SW Motecs. So as if by magic, my SW Motec Pro Blaze H rear panniers have arrived. Now I ended up buying them from an eBay seller who's like a reseller for SW Motec. Rather than going direct to the company, it was about £17 cheaper, and they arrived in about 3 days. So highly recommended. I will flash up the name of that eBay seller on the bottom of the screen. So I've got the pack, I've got everything, I've got lots of nuts and bolts and washers. It doesn't look particularly difficult to fit. And then these things, which I've got to say, rather nice because they're in the right colour scheme, will sit over the back of the bike like so, and we'll have, of course, this bit to hold it away from the bike. But I'm not yet sure whether they're going to work with those rear indicators. I suspect not, so I'll also be fitting this as well. But stage one, let's get these on. Right, just before I start, a quick note about what you get with the pack, by the way. So I bought the complete set, obviously, 2 sets of instructions, obviously 2 bags, 2 inners, all the bracketry that you need in order to get it onto the bike. I've had to buy some thread lock because it does recommend that you use that, and it seems like a good idea. And also, I just think that the only thing I'm going to need is some Allen keys, possibly a small, looks like an 8mm spanner as well. And the whole lot comes in a great big SW Motec sack. So there we go. That's everything that you get in the pack. As I say, it doesn't look too difficult to fit, but stopwatch starts now. Let's see how long it takes to get it on the bike. Okay, all finished, and that took me round about 40 minutes, maybe a little bit less even. So it's all done, and I've got this this extra clip on the bike now. I mean, you can barely see it really. It's quite unobtrusive, doesn't really spoil the look of the bike. And what we do with that is to put in a metal pole. So you need to fit the bags. That goes in there, and then you slide the bags on over the back. Now you'll probably be able to see that this actually comes very close to the indicators, so I can't actually get the bags on, and I am going to have to swap out that tailpiece, but it's very close. Right, you can see at the back of the bike, if I try and fit one of the bags, we've got the pole there, which is supposed to go inside a sleeve on the bag, but it just won't quite fit. It's very close, but it doesn't fit. It just gives you an idea of what the bike will look like with the bag on, but I am going to have to swap out that tailpiece, as I say. Okay, then here we are a week later on. I've had a haircut and a bit of a think about this, and I've decided that I don't want to fit this massive tailpiece back onto the bike. So what I've done is I've bought myself some very small indicators. These are the Oxford Atom. As you can see, they are really tiny, and they are UK legally compliant, so I'm going to put those, and I could put those on either side of my existing tail tidy. Now that would be far too simple, wouldn't it? You see, the problem is that's a JTEC tail tidy. It's very, very cheap. It's a bit flimsy. It's a little bit rusty in places, if I'm honest, and I've never really been happy with it. Also, the position of these indicators with regard to where the number plate is means that these probably wouldn't stick out quite far enough. So what I've done is I thought, since I'm taking it off anyway, let's replace it, be done with it, let's put an R&G tail tidy on. This is a whole different beast. It's a really nice sturdy piece of kit. It's going to go on, it's going to look fabulous. The indicator position sits above where the number plate goes, so these lights will sit up there, and I think that's going to look fantastic. So what I need to do now is take that into the house, get it fitted out with all the lights and bits and pieces, and then we'll get this on the bike and hopefully that'll be job done. Here we go then, we're getting towards the end of this tail tidy install, and probably the most difficult bit so far was getting the wires to feed up through and into the underneath of the tail. So what I did was I taped them all together and pushed them through in the end. That wasn't too difficult. So looking here, what I've done is I've hooked up one of the indicators, which is here, just temporarily, and if I turn the ignition on and hit the blinker, you'll notice that it's flashing very, very quickly. Now, that's too quick, so the legal thing is that it's got to flash between 60 and 120 times a second. That's possibly legal, but there is a bit that comes with the kit with the indicators, which is a resistor. So what I need to do is plug the resistor in there, and that should sort out the blink rate. So let's give that a try. Okay, so obviously just hooked up for test purposes. I've got this thing in here now. I think they call it an 18-watt resistor, which is odd because I thought you measured resistors in ohms. But anyway, that plugs in there, whatever it is. And then if I come back, turn the ignition on, and we've got the left-hand indicator now blinking at the correct rate. So that's nice and easy. All I've got to do really is work out how to fit that into there. I think it's going to fit, no problem. But let's package all that up, get everything connected properly, make sure it's all good and sound, and then we'll get the bike back together. Okay, so that's about it. The bags are fitted and looking fabulous. My mate even commented that they look like Kim Kardashian's bum cheeks, and I'm still trying to work out whether that's a good thing or not. But anyway, there is a slight twist to this tail, literally, because although the individual indicators are working, I discovered that the hazard lights no longer work properly, and oddly it gets worse when the engine's running. Now, this is a bit of a pain. I think it's to do with the resistors that I fitted. After all, they are designed to go from incandescent lighting to LED, and I was just going from big LED lights to smaller ones, so I reckon the resistors are too strong and sapping the power. Now, flashes on either side are okay, but put both on with the hazard switch and the flashes go dim or just flicker when the engine's running. So if anybody's got any idea how to fix that, please leave me a comment below. Now, I might try some weaker resistors, but the answer is most likely changing the indicator relay and removing the resistors altogether. So I'm waiting for a new universal LED relay to arrive in the post. Meanwhile, it's fine to use the bike as it is. I'll just have to be careful if I need to turn the hazards on while I'm riding along. Now then, the eventual cost of all this was around £330 for bags and fixing kit, £120 for a tail tidy, and £30 for indicators, so that's £500. Now I could have done it a bit cheaper if I'd kept the old tail, but let's be honest, this was the right answer, and I reckon looking at this bike, I've created the ultimate street sport tourer. It looks as mean as hell in its raw form, probably more than normal with the new tail tidy. I can commute every day, and then I can slap some bags on, and I'm off around Europe for a few days. I'm so pleased with how this has turned out, and whilst 500 quid is a lot of money, it's a lot less than spending 5 or 6 grand on a sport tourer that's too big for what I really need. Well folks, if you're watching this and have a bike tucked up in the garage, then it's time to roll it out and get ready for spring. And if you're thinking about getting on a bike for the first time, then just do it, but be prepared for it to take over your life. Anyway, whatever you do, keep your chain oiled, and I'll see you soon.